I am so appreciative for y'all who continue to show up and support me, Nicole, Inspiring Souls. But tonight's topic is how to shift your perspective and tap in to be who it is that you were created to be and do that which you were created to do. So I just wanted to come on, kind of share some things that I do when I know and can recognize that I need to shift my perspective. I think there's so much power behind the shift itself, and you'll just be amazed at what more you can do as an individual, and also what you can do to inspire or motivate others as a result of doing so. Okay, so number one, I think it's important that you ask yourself, like, is this happening to me or is this happening for me? Because I think if you mix the two, you may respond incorrectly. So it's so important that you truly assess, that which is happening, right? What's the why behind it? There's so much, honestly, in my life that I thought was happening to me and I took offense to that, and now looking back on it, like, it was all happening for me, for my good, and because I could not identify the difference, I didn't always respond well. I didn't always respond great or accordingly. So I think it's so important that you as an individual first ask yourself, like, what's behind that which is happening, and also with that, like, what are you contributing to that as well? So are you part of the problem or are you a part of the solution? Because I think that will also help you shift your perspective. Okay, number two, I think it's so important that you see yourself as that which you desire to do. So I have really been struggling with the concept of being able to see myself and even refer to myself as a blogger. And I've had a blog now since 2014. So we're about to reach the 7-year mark. And I still sometimes I will openly tell people I have a blog, but I never actually call myself a blogger or a YouTuber. At least not out of my mouth. Like, you may read it in a blog, but it's really hard for me to do that. And I was actually watching a YouTube video from this YouTuber, and she was talking about how, basically we're all influencers of something, right? What's more so, I think, important is that you figure out if you're using your influence for good, and that you really tap into that area, that zone. So I think it's important that me, right, I just desire to, and I think I've finally figured out what I want my help thing to be in my bio, but I want to help people see the beauty in owning their truth. And so the only way that I can do that is if I see myself as such. So I have to see myself as a blogger. I have to see myself as a successful, YouTuber. And I may see myself as these things before they ever come to fruition. I think a lot of times we don't think that we can identify ourselves as such until we've arrived in that area, until we're like the professional, until we're an expert in that area. But I think there's so much beauty in the journey, and how much more of an impact you can have on those who are inspired by your journey, motivated by the steps that you've taken, and what more you could be doing with your platform if you would simply first just see yourself operating in the lane that you've been called to operate in. I think for me, like, I view myself like as a professional because that's what I do from 9 to 5, so to speak. But I think this year, and like maybe like within the last 2-3 weeks, I'm trying to be really better about who am I, and what is it that I see myself as. And so for you all, for like the first time, I am Brittany Nicole, and I'm a blogger / YouTuber, and I feel like my purpose, my mission is to help people see the beauty in owning their truth. And y'all just don't know how long it has really taken me to kind of get to that point. When I first started writing on a blog platform, the goal was not for me to become some like big time like blogger. The goal was for me to simply inspire others. And when I was watching that YouTube video from the YouTuber, she was basically talking about how it's so easy to sometimes start looking at someone's journey, and maybe they're in their chapter 10 and you're in your chapter 2. So to compare your chapter 2 to their chapter 10 is honestly a disservice to yourself. So shifting your perspective is going to require you to do the work and seeing yourself, and being able to say it with pride, and identify yourself. You got to be able to look in the mirror and see yourself as that, identify yourself as that. It was so weird because I was like, Brittany, why did you even start going live to begin with? And it was because I was like, Brittany, the long-term goal is for you to become a motivational speaker, yet no one's ever heard you speak. Like, I don't really know how people are going to ever reach out and ask you to come share a message or ask you to come speak at their event when you don't do that already. So I think even as you identify the area that you want to operate in, or as you identify what you want to be recognized as, you need to start showing up in that space. Okay, number 3, how to shift your perspective. I think you have to, at some point, count your blessings. For me, literally this week, I realized that I've been working in my field now for 7 years. And it's literally here in the 7-year mark that I have this office that I guess most would say is a pretty nice space to work in. It's got this big open window with like all this natural lighting. And I love it. When I go to work, I'm always facing the window. It's big, open, like walking space. And it's just a space that I call my own. And it wasn't until like then I realized, like, wow, 7 years ago, I was sharing a cubicle with 3 other women. So I've never had a space to call my own, because I looked up and was trying to figure out, why don't I ever decorate? It's because that's not the norm for me. I'm so used to having to operate in a shared space that now that I have a space of my own to call my own, it's really hard for me, I guess, to roam freely in that space. And so I think it's so important that you take time to count your blessings. I think when you sit down and just realize, like, look at your journey, figure out where you started from. My blog, y'all, I used to write on WordPress. I used to write 1 blog a month. And I was really proud of that blog that I would write a month. I was motivated and inspired, but the blog started to grow. People started to read the content, and people wanted more, and I wanted to share more. I just didn't know what that was going to look like, because again, for so long, I've just not seen myself as a blogger or as an influencer of any sort. But recognize that we're all influencers of something. And even if, like right now, it says I have 3 people like tuned into this live, and I know more people, of course, watch the video, but recognize that, like, if you have 3, 4, 5 people who show up for your blog, your platform, or who are reaching out for you to provide a service, I hope that you will continue to show up in that space, in that area, because obviously there's a need for you to operate in that field. So continue to count your blessings and allow it to motivate you. I think every day that I wake up, I am just inspired. Like, literally, like, when in my space that I live, like, my furniture, it's a long story I'm not going to share, but like when I first moved to Birmingham, I actually stayed in an apartment and got brand new furniture, like brand new. I had not been praying for this. I had not been seeking the Lord about furniture. I was seeking the Lord about a place in Birmingham that I could afford. The furniture was just something that I got blessed with. So every day that I wake up, I got a brand new living room set. I have a brand new like bedroom furniture. Like, literally, when I wake up in this space, I'm counting my blessings. Is that a part of, like a weekly routine where you honestly just sit down and kind of count your wins? I think a lot of times we put a lot of focus on the areas that we may lose in, I guess you could say, or that we're not as successful in. But I would challenge you this week to sit down and just count your blessings. Like, count the opportunities to where, something happened that you weren't expecting, because I think that will, of course, help you shift your perspective. Number 4, it's important that you seek out the solution to keep your focus solely off of the problem, right? So you can, of course, forget that there is a problem, but I think you have to take the initiative to seek out what's the solution, right? So it's real easy to complain about like issues, so to speak. Like, I recognized this week, last week, I was like, okay, Brittany, we need to get back to working out. It's gonna be like, you keep talking about you're gonna do it, you keep talking about you don't have time. Like, when are you going to like, when are you gonna make time? Like, when are you gonna make? And again, I could have just focused on, I really don't have the time, right? I already have an hour commute to work, so I feel like I lose 2 hours of my day by choice. So it was like, when are you gonna make the time to do this? And what I had to do was do what? Seek out a solution. So what did that require me to do? Required me to get up earlier, which also required me to go to bed earlier. So it's all about preparation. And so I think it's so important that you finding the solution to the problems that do exist. I think you'll be able to take kind of ownership of your lane. Don't put all of your energy into the problem, right? Because there's always going to be something that we can quote unquote complain about. Figure out, right, what is it that I can do, right? Because we can't control every factor. Like, we don't have that sort of power, but with the things that we do have access and the power to control, right, what are we doing with it outside of complaining? I obviously wanted to work out and felt like I didn't have the time, so I had to do what on my end, make some adjustments so that I could incorporate that into my daily thing. And if you've been following the blog, there was probably about 3 years ago I stopped setting an alarm, and I still don't to this day. So literally, as I said about counting your blessings, when I wake up in this space, y'all, I am reminded of the goodness of the Lord, because literally I do not set an alarm. I've been making it to work on time. I've been working out in the morning. I've been able to stop by Smoothie King. Eventually I'm going to get up in enough time to make a little breakfast. But again, we got to take baby steps here, y'all. This getting up at 5:30, 6 o'clock is very new for me. Very new. I typically wouldn't wake up till probably 7:38 because I typically wouldn't have to be at work till about 10. So yeah, 7:30, 8 o'clock, y'all. I'm all about some sleep. That's why I don't wear makeup to work, as y'all can tell. I do not wear any makeup to work because I simply just don't have the time. I'm not a makeup guru, so it takes me a little while to get everything looking the way I want it to look. Number 5, you got to remember your why. You gotta remember, right, why are you on this journey? Why are you trying to tap into this area? Why do you want to become, this? What is your why? And I think as you discover your why, you will also discover your purpose being attached to that. What is my why? Like, why did this blog start? I think I've shared this story before, but if you haven't heard it, the blog started because someone had asked me to come speak in my hometown. And at the time I was living in Jacksonville, Alabama. Someone asked me to come speak. And honestly, when I was living in Jacksonville, y'all, I was making less than $30,000. So I was not rolling in the dough at all. They asked me to come speak, and I honestly did not have the funds to get from Jacksonville to Florence back to Jacksonville. So when I asked, of course, like, I was asking my mom about it, and she was like, Brittany, I just don't think it's going to be worth the trip, because that's a 3-hour drive. And she was like, I just don't think they're, going to pay you for it. So I wouldn't come to me. But I don't know why I felt so strong that I needed to go speak. It was an opportunity to speak to a group of young women, and I've always been so passionate about speaking to young women. I'm actually going to be launching an event towards the end of the month for women. For all the men, just give me some time. I'm working on something, but I do have something this month for women that I'm really pumped and excited about. But literally, my mom was just like, I don't really think it's gonna be worth it, but I literally felt led to go to this event. I don't know what the tug was. So anyways, I go to the event, and of course, on my way back, I needed to stop and get gas, because pretty much that 3-hour trip was a tank of gas. I stopped at a gas station. I stopped at the Chevron, and basically I go in and I pay, I think I paid $10 in gas, because I thought if I paid $10, that will be enough, because I literally lived right across from my workplace, so I wasn't taking a lot of gas, and I had a company car to recruit in. So again, count your blessings, y'all. Somehow the pump, I sit back in my car, and somehow the pump does a little click. I look up, y'all, and the screen said $20. And I literally was very confused, because I knew I had just paid 10, and I was like, did she accidentally set it to 20? And it felt like I hadn't even been in the car that long for $20 to, have been put in. So literally there's this man coming out and he's like, hey ma'am, the lady, the clerk is trying to get your attention. I go back in because of course I wasn't trying to get a charge. I go back in and I'm like, hi, and I'm like, yes, I paid you $10. And she said, yeah. She was like, you can just pay the other 10 and like we'll just call it a day. Except I didn't have $10 to give her. So she's like, well, let me just go ask the manager. She said, because I'm new, obviously. So anyway, she goes to ask the manager. Manager comes out, and y'all, I'm getting really nervous because I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, how would I get her the $10? Y'all, the lady comes out and she says, you know what? She says, that machine, she said, you know, we had been having problems with it, but she said it had never done this before. She said, we'll just go ahead and shut it down for the day. And, you know, she's like, lucky you. She's like, you just got, you know, $20 worth of gas today. She's like, have a good day, ma'am. And in that moment, I knew without a shadow of doubt that was God. And I felt like I was being rewarded for my obedience and going to speak. And the reason I share is because it was then that I literally had a whole like mindset shift that this kind of stuff happens to me all the time. And sometimes people wouldn't want to share that story because, again, I just told you I didn't have any more than $10. And it probably sounds really crazy that I was even willing to kind of make the 3-hour trip. And no, I was not paid or compensated for speaking. And again, I shared that because that is when I went back to my apartment and I was like, I want to remember my year or my time here at Jacksonville State. So I started a blog where I would write a blog once a month. It'd pretty much be about my experiences being, you know, away from home on my first career job. And what do you know, y'all? Got a full tank of gas for that week. Number 6, you got to channel your negative thoughts and energy into a positive. So you need to channel that negative energy and go and help someone in need. Go serve somewhere. Go sponsor, you know, somebody's meal for the day. I honestly just started this month, maybe it was last month, started doing these lunch on me segments. And somebody may even ask, like, Brittany, why are you doing that? Several reasons. When I, probably like 3 years ago, like I said, I've been on this higher ed journey. And if you work in higher ed, God bless you. But y'all know higher ed, when you start out, like, it's just not, you're just not making a lot of money. Okay, you don't make a lot of money in higher ed. So anyways, I'm in higher ed, you know, working, and literally I'm just trying to make it, y'all. I'm just trying to get through. And there would be a lot of times where, like, so when I first moved to Birmingham, actually, I was picking up like second jobs all the time. When I lived in Huntsville, I had part-time jobs on the side. In Huntsville, I worked at Sephora. I also worked at Sephora, Kirkland's. Like, I pretty much have always had a second job, I guess, up until now. But when I first moved to Birmingham, I had a second job, and I was actually working at Logan's as a host. And I absolutely hated that job, but I wanted to be able to pay my bills, and my job just wasn't paying me enough at the time. So literally there'll be times where, like, I honestly didn't know where my next meal was going to come from. I honestly didn't know how I was going to get some gas money for that week to be able to make the commute back and forth. I simply just did not know a lot of those things. And every single time that I had a concern, somebody would cash at me and say, lunch on me today, dinner on me today. Hey, just checking in, like, go treat yourself. And literally I always was like, man, I can't wait to be able to do that, just because. So I started these lunch on me, dinner on me segments. People, honestly, like, thank y'all for the support. You gotta channel your negative thoughts. So when you're having that off day, bad day, I think you need to go do something to help someone else, because I think in that moment your perspective will be shifted, and you will be reminded that it could be worse. I think that's something you always want to kind of keep in mind, is that it could always be worse. Number 7, in regards to how to shift your perspective, I think you have to do more than just show up. I think you got to show up and deliver. You got to show up and serve. You got to show up and be bold. So that's really what I'm doing this year when I go IG live, of course. I really want to, I think, take myself more serious as a blogger. as a speaker, like as an inspo influencer. I want to take myself more serious as such, so that other people take me serious in that field. But also, I truly feel like this is the lane and the area that I've just been called to do, and so it's simply what I feel like I will be doing from now until the Lord tells me to quit.